One thing that we have been watching is all of the big agencies and organizations switching up from being extremely hostile and, hesitant to adopt crypto. They are now telling us, hey, now is the time to focus on this. Now is the time to tap into the crypto space. And it's crazy to see this shift happen in just a matter of like 12 months. And now every single major organization, every single major agency, they are all telling us that yes, crypto is a huge focus. Crypto is going to be the future. We're going to innovate and adopt this tech. Let's start off with the SEC, because we just got a big update regarding Hester Peirce. This is SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce said tokenization is a huge focus now for the agency and urged stronger protections for financial privacy at the DC Privacy Summit. Now, on top of this, we also got another update from SEC Chair Paul Atkins saying that crypto, digital assets, and tokenization are job one for the SEC, focusing on building a strong framework to attract innovators back to the US. So the SEC is now fully focused on crypto. They are fully tapped in on crypto and the technology around it, especially when it pertains back to tokenization. But it's not just the SEC. It's also the CFTC. And remember that the CFTC is working very close with the SEC now. They're collaborating on a harmonized approach to crypto. Now, this is with the Nasdaq. Enhancing market integrity and advancing tokenization with Nasdaq and the US Commodity Futures Trading Commission. If we look down here, we have the Nasdaq has launched a new 3-part webinar series designed to explore the evolving landscape of crypto markets. So this includes, of course, yes, the Nasdaq, and then, of course, Caroline D. Pam from the CFTC. And they're talking about how regulators and market operators are collaborating to build resilient, trustworthy digital asset markets. If we're looking at the key takeaways we have, the CFTC is applying proven futures market standards to tokenized assets to streamline regulation while preserving core protections. Federal coordination is accelerating U.S. crypto competitiveness with new opportunities in retail products and tokenized collateral. The Nasdaq and, of course, the CFTC are modernizing surveillance and compliance infrastructure to build resilient, trustworthy digital asset markets. So they want to streamline without sacrificing safeguards, accelerate U.S. crypto competitiveness, apply existing rules, then uplift, operationalize tokenized collateral, enable retail crypto products on futures exchanges, coordinate across agencies as well. And of course, yes, this is with that joint initiative from the SEC and the CFTC. Invest in talent and transformation, modernize surveillance systems, and of course, conclusion, Nasdaq's role as a trusted partner. They want to modernize capital markets. They want to modernize every single market. And this is all through collaborating with the CFTC and, of course, the Nasdaq. And what's crazy about this is, let's go back to March of this year, where the Nasdaq announced plans to launch a 24-hour trading platform based around equities. Right? This is on an equities exchange in the second half of 2026, pending regulatory approval, which, hey, at this point, it seems as though they're going to get the green light pretty quick. But what's crazy about this is 24-hour trading. Now, I believe it was 24/5 that they were talking about. They can't get to the 24/7 just yet without innovating with blockchain, but they're going to trial this, and then guess what comes next? 24/7. But we already heard from Vlad Tenev from Robinhood that 24/7 is not possible without tapping into new technologies. Traditional tech just simply cannot provide the basis for that. But talking more so about this, let's go over here real quick to this update from September 8th, which was new. Nasdaq has filed with the SEC to tokenize stocks, letting investors trade equities either traditionally or on-chain with full shareholder rights. Again, when we are thinking about 24/5 or 24/7, they want to bring this on chain. They want to tap into new technologies for this. And then also, when we are thinking about what's really going on here, we have a video. Now, I recently talked about how the IMF was, confirming what's coming. The IMF has confirmed what's coming. Everything on chain, everything moving on chain in a significant way. When it comes back to names like the Nasdaq, okay, we know how crucial of a piece the Nasdaq is for traditional markets. We know that the Nasdaq wants to tokenize. We know that they want to tap into new technologies. We know that they want to streamline things to 24/5, at least right now in 2026. But what happens next? Well, it's innovating with new technologies. This is from Subjective Views. Nasdaq CEO describing blockchain and AI as an unstoppable force that's coming. The IMF already confirmed this, and now we have the Nasdaq sounding the alarm. Check this out.
We've thought a lot about what's been happening with this technology and where it's going. And as you think about the last 20 years or 15 years, the world had to deal with an economic shock of the financial crisis that resulted in most of the developed world and the developing world building out resiliency, building out institutions, putting a lot of, I would say, gates in the gears to make it so that we could have more safety and more security in the financial markets and in the economies. But we have this technology that's an unstoppable force that's coming. And I would say that at this point, with that level of transformation from this incredible capability that's on our doorstep, we have to move to a time of agility and adaptability.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so we have to look at what's made us so resilient. There are a lot of things. I mean, I will point to the U.S. markets for a second. I mean, we are hyper resilient as a system. The U.S. equity markets, we're all interlinked, we're networked, we have failures, we've had mistakes, and so we've all figured out how to make that resiliency work and handle an immense amount of volumes. You're seeing huge volumes and huge shocks in the system, and they were all being handled and absorbed. So that resiliency is there. But now it's a time to say, okay, on that basis of that foundation, what do you really need to have to remain resilient while becoming adaptable? Because that adaptability, whether it's digital assets or AI, adaptation is happening. And so if the institutions aren't prepared for it or a country's not prepared for it and they're calcified in their views, they will be left behind. But if they say, okay, I want to have this base and make it so that we have a resilient base, and then we change our policies. We think differently about regulation. We think differently about taking down some of the gates, whether it's state regulation for us and zoning, or whether it's country regulation in the EU that's holding us back from allowing this new technology to take force. And thinking about education, thinking about all the things that as a region or as a country really need to change. I personally think that we're at this cusp of this moment, and that leadership's critical to making sure that it's successful and it's propagated around the world.
And again, this is exactly why we keep focusing on the big picture, right? We are watching as the ground floor is being created around our financial system to accommodate and adopt these new technologies. The tech is already here. The infrastructures are already created. Ripple has created a great infrastructure to tap into. All we are waiting for are these big names to tap in and go live with this tech. And they are now preparing to. And it seems as though a lot of this stuff is going live in 2026. Citi's going live in 2026 with crypto custody. The Nasdaq wants to go live in 2026 with 24/5 trading. Robinhood and big names like Robinhood are also tapping in 2026. And it's crazy because the Nasdaq is also going to be at Ripple Swell. Adina Friedman, who was just speaking, the chair and CEO of Nasdaq, is going to be at Ripple Swell. This got announced back in July, and she's going to be exploring the future of the financial system, which we already know is going to be based on DLT and blockchain, the potential of digital assets and blockchain, the evolving role of tokenization and emerging technologies. And what's crazy about this is we already know that the XRP ledger is witnessing significant adoption around tokenization efforts. $365+ million, up almost 5% in the last 30 days. But look at the RWA 30-day transfer volume. It just crossed $600 million, over 80% in the last 30 days. This is incredible. Stablecoins also jumping in a huge way in terms of 30-day transfer volume up 80+%, $343 million. Guys, again, when we think about these heavy discussions, and even when we think about Ripple Swell, this is going to be something to focus on because I'm sure that we are going to hear from Adina yet again. But again, we are watching as these networks and these projects like XRP, the environment around them is extremely ripe. These big names are, jumping in. And I think that it's only a matter of time until we start to see big players like the Nasdaq going live on public blockchains to tap into, digital rails. And of course, it's not just going to be one name, it's going to be a multi-chain future. However, I really do think that Ripple and XRP are at the forefront of this. And we also remember that video from back in September where we got a big update from Nasdaq filing with the US SEC to tokenize stocks. This is massive. This is from Altcoin Daily. I'm sure that you guys probably remember this video. I'm going to play it again for you guys to listen closely because, again, this is Adina addressing this.
You want to tell people what?
You think we should?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so this morning we announced that we're going to be bringing tokenization into our markets. So making sure that equities are tokenized and traded on market, in the markets, not in a side sleeve, but actually in the core markets.
So the eventual goal, or is it today? 24/7, 365 equities, just let it rip constantly.
I mean, I think we are all moving in that direction. We announced several months ago that we're moving to 24/5, so we're kind of moving that way.
So Saturday and Sunday, not
for equities yet. I think that we have to. We're walking before we run, but I think that getting to 24/5 is a major advancement for the U.S. equities markets. And then on top of that, now with tokenization, if we can introduce that also into the markets, it allows us to really think about streamlining the post-trade processing, bringing and modernizing elements of the markets that have a lot of friction. We are hyper resilient and we're hyper scaled. We manage, like today, we had 95 billion messages come into our systems today, and we had a median, return time of 20 microseconds from order to trade. We handle like 3 million messages a second. It's hugely scaled. But then at the same time, once that trade occurs, there's a different process. And then the post-trade process, as we know, is an area where tokenization really shines. And really cutting down the friction, managing capital flows across the global ecosystem, and really bringing that capability into the markets is going to be the next.
I'm curious to get your reaction to this. There's this very famous curve, which is like you get this early font of insanity, and then there's the trough of disillusionment, and then you grow through. And does it seem like crypto is actually in blockchain? It's finally real. It's like there's real companies doing real things, stablecoins, what Sachs did with the Genius Act.
Well, I actually want to point to that because, honestly, having regulators who want to work on bringing it into the mainstream and want to create the rules of the road is such a refreshing thing, because I think that it allows us all to understand how we can operate within a world where there are tenets of investor protection. The technology is going to have things we can and can't do, but also being forward-thinking and forward-leaning and how the technology is going to be applied is going to be critical. So we're very excited about the fact that we finally have this convergence of regulation between the traditional markets, the digital markets. How do we bring it all together to, frankly, advance all markets? And we're very, very excited about that.
And what she just said in that video is so important to think about. 95 billion processes every single day over Nasdaq. That is all transactions that will move over, these networks. Because again, she said 24/5 initially. They're going to walk with that first and then run to 24/7. That's not possible without blockchain. It's not possible without these public blockchains as well. We are in the beginning phase of the big shift. I want you guys to realize what's going to be hitting these markets, or I should really say these networks, in 2026 and beyond. The big players are lining up. All you have to do is just be patient. And I know you hate hearing that, but we already know that a lot of these projects in the space are already handpicked. I really do think that Ripple and XRP are at the forefront of this. I cannot wait until November 4th and the 5th, because this is going to be very important to focus on, because we are going to hear a lot from these names like the Nasdaq, telling us exactly what they are planning to do and how they're doing it. But we already know currently stocks are getting tokenized. Over $660+ million are tokenized right now on chain. This is just the beginning phase. Like, we are just starting to see drops of water in the bucket when it comes to tokenization. And all we have to really do is wait for these names to go fully live. And we already know that they're preparing this. September was definitely a big month to really focus on when it comes to some of these big moves, like, of course, the SEC filing with the Nasdaq to tokenize stocks. I think that it's only a matter of time until we start to see real value, because again, for the most part, I really don't think that we have been really seeing real value hitting these networks just yet. I look forward to when we are seeing that real, true institutional grade capital hitting these networks, and that's going to be in the trillions of dollars. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely like, subscribe, to notifications on, because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.